Hello, welcome to my channel, Diane in Stitches. I'm Diane. This is a channel all about sewing and what I've made, what I'm going to make, and anything new that's coming into the sewing room. And I hope you'll find it enjoyable and interesting and pick up some hints and tips as well. So start with what I'm wearing, as is usual. This is the Pattern Emporium Bound to Be tee. Which I made last year. Something went funny here. This is a binding rather than a neckband, and you attach it and then fold it over, and then I cover stitched it on, and I was convinced that I'd pulled it tight enough, but it's just sticking as a little bit now, starting to wrinkle. So I don't know what went on there, but also I've got on, which you might not be able to see very well, is the Love Notions Allegro skirt. Now, a couple of people who I look at on YouTube, Zelda, who is Zelda Sews, and Caroline, who is Sweet Pea Sewing, retired and redesigned, or some Sweet Pea Sewing anyway. I know Zelda has sorted her skirt out with the yoga waistband, but Caroline was mentioning it on her latest video. But this is a woven fabric, and I have just attached a cotton jersey waistband to it instead of the self fabric with elastic threaded through. So I've just left it on this today. We've been out this morning just to show you what that looks like, and it is so comfortable. It's much more comfortable than a channel with the elastic through, and you just measure the amount of your waist, take a bit off. There's a seam allowance. I've just got a seam down the back, and just measure it like elastic really, and then you just stretch it as you're attaching it to the skirt body, and it'll just stretch on, and it just produces a sort of a gentle gather, and then it's not all gathered here around your waist. It's flat, and it is so comfortable. And I got the idea from Karina, whose channel is Lifting Pins and Needles, and she did state wherever possible she puts a yoga waistband on trousers. I have made a pair of trousers that from this pattern. It's the Love Notions. I'll just reach for that because I can tell which one it is. The Love Notions Allegro, and you've got two skirts. There's a mini or a maxi, but I did sort of in between, shorts and trousers. Now the trousers sort of taper a little bit to the ankle, which I'm not altogether keen on, but I did do the self waistband on those. And it's not a thick waistband, it's quite narrow actually. But I certainly prefer the yoga waistband. It's very nice. Anyway, we'll carry on. So what have we got today? Well, hopefully, firstly, you might have seen my new whizzy graphics and introductory bit of the video. I'm just trying something. I don't know. I'm getting a bit fed up of the one I had, so I'll mix things up a little bit and add a bit of a change anyway, but whether it's going to stay or not, I don't know yet, but we'll see. Trying and adding music, and I'm trying to sort of expand my skills on this videoing malarkey, so we'll see how that all goes. Anyway, I'm going to try and get this done. Mind you, we haven't got any sun today, so I don't think the room is going to get hot. We all seem to be talking about the weather because we've had a heat wave in the UK. I've got the window open, just let a bit of breeze in, but it's quite cloudy today, but it is still warm. But usually when the sun gets round here, it's like an oven in here. I've had to abandon sewing because it's just been too hot. Even if I draw the curtains, it just gets too hot. Anyway, I'm just referring to lists because otherwise I will forget things, brain fog, menopausal brain fog. I'm supposed to be past the menopause, but you know, it's the gift that keeps on giving. That was that. Last week, you remember, I was doing the Miley top by Stylock, and I misjudged the amount of fabric I needed for this flounce. Someone last on the video, it was 4757 Bryce, said cut it in half so that I'd got a front piece and a back piece. Well, I tried that. So the width, obviously it was quite a deep flounce, but I cut it in half. But I've pinned it on, and even with the seam allowance and then hemming, although I would have done that rolled hem along the bottom. It's too short. I mean, you can see where it finishes there. It's sort of above my navel, and even, you know, if I had added this half depth flounce, it would have still looked a bit strange and short. So I thought. So I've had a look, and I've found some viscose chalice on Minerva plain, and I was going to order some samples. But it was only $3.99 a metre, and annoyingly afterwards I found a link on their front page saying that certain fabrics, end of line fabrics, you add a code and get a discount, and that was one of the fabrics, and I missed it. So anyway, £3.99 a metre. So I've ordered like a fuchsia type colour and an ivory. So I'll just see which one looks best, if either of them. Other than that, I don't really know what I'm going to do with this thing. So we shall see, but that hasn't arrived yet. I always find things from Minerva. They say it's like this, you know, quick delivery, but every time I've ordered from Minerva, it's taken at least a week to arrive. It's very strange, but anyway, so that'll come sometime next week, probably. So that's where I'm at with that. The other thing I finished this week, well, I finished two things actually. I was doing the Love Notion. I went back to the Love Notions classic tee. And whereas I did the V-neck, that was my first V-neck that I'd done. I went for the scoop neck. On this is like just a purple cotton lycra, and what I did on the last t-shirt I made, which was the Pattern Emporium Keep It Simple with a different V, with the one that crosses over. I did forget to mention that on the back neck I've put one of these binding, did a neck binding to hide the overlocked edge, which I've never done it before, and I'd seen Carole on Sew Carole do it, and she'd referred back to Rachel, who is the French seams. So I went to have a look at Rachel's video, and I thought I'm going to have a go at that. She gives two examples of either using a cotton lycra, although she used a contrast one, or using woven bias binding. And I've been thinking I quite liked the look of that one, and I was going to order a couple of reels from the Specky Seamstress. I'm not going to do the subscription, I don't think, but I thought I'd order one or two packs of her lovely bias binding. Make a change from the plain stuff you buy in the shops. But anyway, what I've done with this one as well is I've just used the self fabric, and it's just from, you just start it at one shoulder seam and end at the other one, and you do get a line on the outside, which I was actually going to cover stitch and continue the line round with cover stitch and cover stitch the scoop seam allowance down. So that just covers up the sometimes untidy. I know it's only you sees it. Nobody looks at it while you're wearing it. But that was something I quite like doing now. I'm going to do that on all my t-shirts. Just hide the back neck. So I did this with this one. I did do my lengthen the arm side armhole to lower the bust point. I just did a size S. It's sort of a, I'll put some pictures up. It's sort of it's a casual, it's sort of a not tight fit, but it's not oversized either. I did a size small. I added an inch here, and it's sort of shaped out to the hips at the bottom. It's like, but so instead of shortening it on this length and shorten line, which would have brought this bulk upwards and not be sitting on my hip, I just cut 2 inches off the bottom. And so I added an inch, and then I cut 2 off because I quite like the shorter lengths of t-shirt now. So yeah, I should have just cover stitched that thing down. I might go around and do it again, but I'd change the overlocker thread. I've changed the cover stitch thread. I'd undone it and put it away because that sort of sits behind my brother overlocker there on that table, and I'd just put it all away, and I thought, no, I can't be bothered getting that out again now and rethreading it. So I thought I'll do it maybe next time I get the cover stitch out to do something else. So with the t-shirt details, and I just thought it would be interesting as I was making that t-shirt to explain, put a little bit in about how I do the neckbands, and also just give you a little example of actually how I did the binding. Although Rachel, if you go back to the French seams and watch Rachel's video, she does explain it all, but I just thought I'd just put a segment in here on how I do neckbands in general, how I measure for the neckband piece, and how I sort of set it all up and sew it. So I'll put that in now and then come back after that, and we'll carry on with the other news of the week. So what I thought I would do would just be give you a quick rundown on the way that I do t-shirt neckbands. Now, on this pattern, or on most patterns that I've used, after you've sewn the shoulder seams, they tell you to put the sleeves in, and then this one also tells you to sew up the arm, the underarm, and all the way down the side seam, and then put the neckband in. But what I found, I read a tip a while ago, is putting the neckband in doesn't affect any other part of the construction, so it doesn't matter that you put it in first or last. So what I do is I get the shoulder seams sewn up, put them together, and then lay the neck edges together and find the centre back, and then all these edges, and then that's the centre front. And this is my neckband piece, but the pattern piece sometimes isn't the right size, so I leave that until I've got this stage done. And then what I do is I get a tape measure. The seam allowance on here is 1 centimetre, so I put the tape measure on its end and go around the neckband at 1 centimetre, like so, till I get to the front, and I've got 15 inches there. So the whole neckband is 30 inches, and then I work out 80% of that total, which comes to 24 centimetres, 24 inches. Now, as it happens, this pattern piece, with the seam allowance, is the right size. So I have used the pattern piece for this, but otherwise I would just cut out just a rectangle in whatever size my calculations come out to. The other way of doing it is to put, what I've done with this as well, by the way, is with the neckband, I press it in half first before I do any stitching of the back seam up. Press it in half, put this memory crease in, and it makes it far easier at a later stage when you're pressing, when you're attaching the neckband, that it's already pressed and you haven't got to mess about pressing it once it's in a circle. So I do that first. But if I put those edges together, and that's going to be the seam allowance end, I can put that on I've overlapped that probably 1 centimetre or so, and then you just put the edges together and just pull it slightly, and then just keep going right round on the edges with all those edges lining up, the neckband edge and the body edge, and just pull it around. You need a bit more stretch here at the front, and just pull it around, and it just goes. I mean, it'll work differently once I'm actually sewing it, but that is another way of finding out whether that neckband's going to fit in the around the neckline. So what I'll do then now is I'm going to sew the ends together. So you just open out these ends again and put them right sides together, and then sew that. Now I used to do this. I used to do everything on the overlocker, but what I found was that you have to snip the seam and then turn one way and one the other, so that the seam lies flat. And I just found it a lot more comfortable, a lot easier to just do this seam on the sewing machine. So that's what I'll do now. Just do that on the sewing machine, and then it lies a lot flatter than it does if you'd overlocked that seam. So that's how I measure for the actual neckband, and as I say, I do it before anything. I just sew the shoulder seams up and then do the neckband, because if you're trying to do all this, putting it on, stretching it on, and you've got sleeves in the way, and the side seams are all stitched together, it just makes it a little bit. This is just far easier to do this. Well, all you've got is the front and back together at the shoulder seams, and then you've got room to manipulate this neckband as it needs to be. So that's that stage done. And then I'll show you how I sew it on. So this is the way I like to attach my neckband. They said to divide it into quarters. I do eighths, so that it's a little bit more easier to manage with in the shorter distances. And then so you divide the neckband and the neckline into eighths. So initially I've got my front and my back, and then I put those together to find the first quarter point. The shoulder seam is there, so it's not the shoulder seam, it's usually forward of the shoulder seam. And then once I've got those points, I then put those together again and find the middle between those quarters. So I get eight divisions altogether. So I've got my neckband sewn together on the sewing machine, and then that just folds up nicely because you've already done that memory press. And so then you line that up with the back, centre back, and then you just work your way around, matching up these other pins. So they are where you have to join the neckband, and then as you're sewing this baggy bit here, as you're pulling the neckband on, you're stretching the neckband, and the body of the t-shirt will flatten out, but try not to stretch the body. You're just stretching the neckband on. So this is why I find the easier to do it in eighths, because you've only got this little bit to work with, as opposed to trying to get these to fit. It's sort of I find it easier to fit the eighths rather than as it was in quarters. And so I just keep going round like that until, I don't know what keeps going off here. Camera keeps doing silly things. Must somehow be setting the tracking off. Very strange. So I just keep stretching that around, matching those, each pin up in turn, till you've got the neckband in place and you've got these small little bits that you just pull up, and then that eventually closes up once you start to sew. And I think what I might do, sometimes I do it on the sewing machine first, just to make sure that it's going to fit, prior to doing it on the overlocker, because it's a lot easier to unpick sewing machine stitches than if you've secured it well with the overlocker. So that's the neckband pinned on, ready to sew. So now the neckband is on with this, just with the sewing machine. It's a little bit, it'll get pressed out, all these wrinkles. It's a bit, I have given it a press, but it's just a bit difficult because the edges are just curling. They just curl up all the time, jersey. I'm hoping this neck's going to be a bit flatter. I was in two minds whether to do it a little bit shorter, the neckband, but we'll see what happens when I've got it overlocked on, and I'm sure it'll be okay once it's had a good press. So now I've got the neckband overlocked on. There's still a little bit of pressing. Probably I have just pressed it again. I think I could probably have done with it being half an inch shorter, maybe, or maybe, I don't know. But anyway, so it looks nice. I used to start sewing here, and then I thought, why am I doing that? And so now I start at one of the shoulder seams, so that all the tailing, that, you know, when you have to trail off, is all hidden away. So, but also what I am going to do, which I did for the first time on my last t-shirt, the navy, what was it, the Pattern Emporium t-shirt I did, the other v-neck that got the sort of a crossover v. I put a back neck binding on, which I've discovered. Well, I didn't just discover it. I saw it mentioned on a YouTube channel, and I watched the lady who first did it, which is Rachel of the French Seams. So I may probably going to do that on the back neck face in there. Back neck binding to make that look even neater than it does, even though I haven't started drawing. But you can see how sort of flat that sewing machine seam is, as opposed to it used to be quite bulky when you've done it on the overlocker. So I shall carry on with this now and finish it off. So I'm going to do this back neck binding now, before I do anything else, because I think it will be easier without the sleeves and everything connected. So what I've done is I've just cut a strip of self fabric. When on the demonstration, Rachel, the French seam, she does either use a cotton lycra, either same fabric or contrasting if you like, or she did use some woven bias binding. She shows 2 different methods of doing it. So anyway, I haven't got anything to do that, any bias binding. Well, I have got some bias binding, but I'd rather use the same fabric. So what I've done is you start at one shoulder seam, or just beyond the shoulder seam. Turn one end of this strip in. I have already, by the way, pressed up 1/4 of an inch along the bottom end. So you then pin along your stitch line so that you're sandwiching the neckband in between the binding and the body of the t-shirt. So you just pin along, following the seam, and then I've got quite a bit at the end here extra. I'm now at the other shoulder seam, so I'm going to cut. He says finding the scissors. So I'm going to cut off the excess there, and then I'm going to fold that back and put a pin there. So I've got the binding now between the shoulder seams with the neckband sandwiched in the middle, and I've got pins across the stitch line. So I'll just do that on the sewing machine, just so straight line all the way across there. So here we've got the neck binding stitched on the sewing machine. You've got the end sewn, the end turned in there, and that starts at that shoulder seam, and then at this side turned in the other end, and that finishes at the other shoulder seam. So it's binding is where the actual neckband, and then that's the body of the t-shirt. So you've got the neckband sandwich between the body of the t-shirt and this binding. So what you do now is bring this binding down and then tuck it under the seam that you've overlocked. So you're tucking it under the row edge. Pop some pins in. I think this is a little bit wide. She does suggest an inch, and an inch wide piece of fabric, and press it under 1/4 of an inch. And I did an inch last time, and it did seem on my last t-shirt, and I did seem to be tugging it too much, so I thought I'd do a bit extra this time. But I think the inch might have been, I suppose I could cut some off, but as you go along, just tuck that under and pin it down so that neatly hides the overlocked edge. You will get a row of stitching on the outside, the back of the outside of the t-shirt, but what I might do is I might go over with my cover stitch and stitch all the way around anyway. So it would have had a row of stitching anyway if I'd cover stitched it. So basically just pinning this down, just turn that under the seam, and that bit you've pressed up, turn it under the overlocked edge till you get to the end, and then that just goes under at that bit. And then you just sew along this edge here, and that binding just neatens the edge of the so you don't see the overlocking basically. So here's the back neck binding in place. You can see where it just comes to the shoulder seams. I've got one shoulder seam going the wrong way, which got caught up in the overlocker, but anyway. So that's what it looks like on the inside. So you've just got a turned under edge there, if you can see that. And then I've just sewn right along the edge just enclosing that seam so that when you've got it on the right side, when you're looking at the t-shirt, as it's finished, you've just got the seam, the overlock seam is hidden. Obviously it's coming all the way around the front as well, but you just hide that untidy looking, if you like, bit of overlocking. And on the outside at the back, you've just got that one row of stitching, which I think a lot of ready-to-wear garments have anyway. So it just comes to the shoulder seam. As I say, I might cover stitch anyway, cover stitch the rest of the seam down so that it lies straight and neat. But so I've done all that before I even put the sleeves on, because it's much easier to just work with bits you can manipulate without having sleeves and side seams sewn up in the way. So that's the second one I've done. I think it was easier with the 1 1/4 inch. I did it 1 1/2 and then I cut a little bit off, but I think 1 1/4 inch just fits round and tucks under. So I had a bit of when I did the other one, I had a bit of an issue at the ends where I was trying to really drag it round to make it fit underneath the seam. So the seam just carries on then round. And so that's where it joins. That's the front, and then so you've got the back neck nicely covered. So I hope you found that useful, interesting. Most of you probably will know all about that anyway, how to do neckbands, but there may be somebody there that will find a bit of help from that. So the other thing that I was making this week was the Rotary dryer cover, which one I made a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. It was just looking a bit grubby and faded and not very nice. So I decided to make a new one, and I think I showed, we went to Retford. There's a market there that has a stall, and they have this outdoor fabric, which is where I got the last lot from. And I bought this sunflower one. So I've made that up, and what I did with the original one was I just cut literally out of this piece that was left. The height of the dryer is the width of the fabric, so I think it was 60 inches wide, and then I just joined the top and box it, and then what was left I just cut a strip off, and we just use it as a tie round to tie it so it doesn't fly off in the wind, and just tied it on. But what I thought I would do with this one, I had this bright idea since I had my Prim Creative Vario tool, was to put eyelets around the bottom. So I got all my eyelets out. Now I've got on the Prim ones. When I ordered the tool and some bits and bobs to go with it, I ordered the eyelet set for the 11 and 14 millimeter, and then I ordered 11 millimeter eyelets, and they're quite big. So in my stash, I had some old eyelets which used with the pliers, but they're hemline. But recently I ordered some extra eyelet tools. So it's 4 and 5 and 8 millimeters, and these are 5.5. So I was wanting to test them to see how they all worked, if they would work with the Prim, because as long as if you get these sets with these little things in, they come out, and I would have thought that because they can be used with the plier type things as well, you can take those out. And I've been getting really confused with the eyelets, because I had some of these. I picked these up when we lived in Cyprus. I volunteered in a charity shop for a little while, and a lady brought in a lot of haberdashery. I think her business was shutting down, so these have got euros on them. So I just commandeered. As soon as this stuff came in, I went, oh, haberdashery, I'll have some of that. so I got these hemline various eyelets and the tool set. They're all in a bag doing stuff. But the thing that was confusing me with these was you get all the stuff together. The instruction, it says place washer 1 on the eyelet. So you've put your eyelet with the post on it. Then you put your fabric on, and then you put the washer on. And it says with open side facing down. That's on the eyelets, on the actual tool, the actual parts. Open side facing down. Now I thought, well, what are they calling the open side? I was really confused, because then on the tool set one, it says place the washer on the eyelet with the open side facing up. So that says up, that says down. Same. So I was most confused. So when I got my eyelets from a prim, I was equally confused with that. So I went through yesterday, and I just sacrificed a few to practice. It's open side facing down, because if you put the open side facing up, you get, I don't know if you'll see that one. There's like a space underneath the actual washer edge, whereas if you do it face down, open side down, that bit stays flush with the fabric. So I then tried. I have got some prim ones, and they were silver, and so I tried those. But I thought, well, I prefer the gold. So I was hoping that the hemline ones would work, and they seemed to be working. So I cracked on with that. So I'll just show you so I've now finished it's just a big long tube basically, and then I've boxed the end. This is the top that will go over because mine's a four post dryer. When it's open, there's 4 posts on it, so it does fit. One side is a bit longer than the other, but the other one fits. So this is basically the same size. So it's just a boxed end. So it will lie square. And then at the bottom, I'd put all the eyelets, and then in my stash I found this pull thing that will cinch that up, so we don't need the extra little tie that I made from the other fabric. Keith got out he got these green cords from something. I think it's a garden twine or something or other. So that will just cinch up the bottom. I'm quite pleased with that. It's going to be nice and bright in the garden, because as I said, the other one has gone quite faded. Get all the air out of it. We'll go and put that on in a little while. So that was the saga with that. So also now, I think you might remember last week I was saying that after I'd got this big order from Sherwood's and Pound Fabrics, I was intending to go down to Sherwood's to their open day, and it was on Saturday, Sunday and Monday last weekend, and I was going to go on the Monday, and then away from mentioning it here, we decided, Keith and I, to go on the Saturday. And then I decided, after all this fabric arrived, and I thought, I shouldn't be going. I decided not to go. And then Claire, whose channel is Clarobobbins, mentioned she was going. Her friend commandeered her into going, and but they could only go on Sunday. And I said, well, I'd decided. She messaged me, and I said, well, I more or less decided I wasn't going now. And I said, oh, all right, I'll come on the Sunday. So we drove down. It's about 50 minutes drive for us down to Ilkeston in Derbyshire. So we're not far from the M1, and then we just go down, and then it's just off the M1 at the other end. So we got there quite just before 11 o'clock, I think. Claire and Sandra, her friend, were a little bit later. And I'd already gone round and got stuff by that time, but I went back in. Keith sat in the car and read his book. So we had a little wander around. It was lovely meeting Claire and Sandra, and we had a little chat. I think next time, there's another one in October that we've thought we might, whether we'll need any more fabric even by October. They've decided to have another one in July, which is definitely too soon. But the October one is a little bit better. Hopefully I'll have used a little. We both will have used a bit of our stash before October. So we're going to meet up again in October, at the October one. And go, Claire says she's found somewhere that we could go for lunch. So that will be nice, because we just then left them in the shop and we came home. So, and had our lunch when we got home. So that would be nice. Claire says she's found a nice pub to have some lunch. So that'd be lovely. It's really nice meeting up with her. She's mentioned on her video, on her latest video, that we both started the channels at the same time, and it was so Carole who mentioned us. She'd looked out and found new vloggers to promote, and we'd both started at around the same time, so we sort of got an affinity, and we've commented, on each other's vlogs. So that would be lovely seeing Claire and Sandra again, and going to have a nice little social lunch. Ladies and one gentleman who lunch. Anyway, so did I buy any fabric at Sherwood's? What a silly question. So, well, Keith started off really. He'd spotted this and he said, oh, I like this one. So this is going to be one of the shirts. This is the quick sew shirt that I normally make for Keith, the short sleeve version, which has had numerous multicoloured, bright, fancy fabrics in. But he saw this one. I think that's the right way up. So this is the one. It's just got little scribbly, a bit Picasso-y, scribbly faces on it. It's a little bit. It needs. I've washed it. All this has been through the wash, so it just needs pressing. But there's various faces on it. It's very strange, but that's so that's for Keith's shirt. Sling them over there. We're going out of the way. And then I was looking for something. I wanted to make the Downtown jacket by Cotton Emporium, and I was looking for something suitable for that. So I saw this. I think it's like a cotton twill. It's just plain creamy beige. It's sort of what side is the? I think that's the. Can't really see the. It's like a twill. It's not very heavy, but I think that'll just make a nice spring, autumny weight jacket. Because as I say, I've been wanting to make this for a while, and I was going to do it in that faux suede, which was just going to be impossible. I only just managed the Ilford jacket, because the Downtown jacket has a burritoed yoke, and there was absolutely no way that faux suede was going to burrito. So that was out. In the remnants trolley, I found this viscose. So it's just a sort of square, various coloured squares in various blues. That's quite nice. I've not had that through the wash yet. Probably some blouses. I may have another go at the Miley top, but I have got some blouses that would make. And then I just fancied some different, I've got some denim to make some jeans, but I fancied a different, like a, not white, I'm not sure I would want to wear white, but I got this natural, it's like a sort of creamy, I suppose it's like a lightweight denim weight, a twill weave, I don't know if, there we are, it's sort of a bit speckled. This chap was looking at it and he says, oh, it's still got the seeds in. He said they'll wash out. So these are these little black specks apparently. He said they were seeds. So we'll see what that comes out like. So that I'm going to make some trousers out of that. I think that's thick enough for trousers. So yeah, so we've that's the fabric from Sherwood's. Have I got anything else to mention? No, I think we're done for today. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's vlog. Do leave me a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it. Also leave a comment. I do like reading your comments. Let me know what you think of the new colour scheme and the start and the thumbnail. Also subscribe if you haven't already done so. It doesn't cost anything and it does help the channel to reach other people looking for sewing related content. So with that, I'll say thanks for watching. I hope you have some good sewing this week, and I hope to see you all in the next video. So bye for now.